Chapter 1. Two Salem Families, 1641 to 1692. The Putnams and the Porters. Like all children, Anne Putnam, Jr. must have grown up listening to her parents, her relatives, and their friends tell stories. The fables, legends, and myths children hear are not only the kind that parents and teachers tell formally, the ones that always end in morals that adults are eager to pass on. There are also stories adults tell one another, often bitter tales about tricks, conspiracies, and bad people who have managed to bend the rules and come out on top. Those are the stories Anne must have heard again and again, for her powerful family was suffering setbacks, and they were sure they knew why. Things should have been different. John Putnam came from Berkshire County, near London, to Salem in New England and established a farm there in 1641. The first town established in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Salem took its name from shalom, the Hebrew word for peace. Its founders wanted Salem to be a place where a settler could prosper while living well with his neighbors, obeying the rules of the Lord. In 1629, 3 years after the first Europeans arrived in Salem, they defined the shared commitment that was the basis of their community. We covenant with the Lord and one with another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways. A people bound together to live by God's laws. This pact formed the heart of the Puritan community, and it was built upon a very special kind of test. Puritans did not think a person could do anything to win God's favor. No amount of good works or prayers or donations to the church would help in any way. Salvation was entirely up to God. But when God invited a person to do so, he or she could prepare to receive divine grace. Paradoxically, a key moment came just when the person felt hopeless. Samuel Sewall was a Boston merchant who was also a devout, sincere Puritan. He would later play an important part in the Salem witch trials. Sewall recorded his spiritual struggles in his diary. At the very moment when he was about to become a full member of his church, he experienced the most extreme doubts. He questioned whether he actually believed in the divinity of Jesus, and he felt he had to admit to the whole congregation what a great sinner I had been. Similarly, a woman in Wenham, a town near Salem, who was also about to join a church, described herself as in a worse condition than any toad. Recognizing one's sinfulness and unworthiness was extremely painful and frightening. A woman named Anne Fitch described this vividly. My sins and God's wrath were so amazing to me that I can't express it, so that though my bodily pain was very great, yet such was the anguish of my spirit that I thought it 10 times greater, and so great that no affliction that ever I felt in my life was in any measure like it. Looking clearly at the state of her own soul, the sinner could see how hopeless it was to expect anything from God, how undeserving she was of salvation. But this very agony also opened new space, new room in a person. If God allowed it, shattered pride permitted the person to experience the sweetness, the beauty of divine grace. Once a person was sure that God had given that gift of grace, he could stand before a church and describe how the divine Spirit had worked on his soul. If the congregation approved, the saved person could then join them as a full member, a visible saint. When a male believer stood up and addressed his congregation, women generally spoke privately to elders, then the pastor read the statement out loud, a unique kind of bond was built. In one way, the statement, called a relation, was a kind of test. The congregation could decide whether or not that person was only pretending to be saved. In another way, the relation was like the confessions now seen on talk shows and in group therapy sessions. A person admitted his weakness in public, which allowed him to feel fully accepted by the community. Having a test for membership in a church did more than offer Puritans spiritual comfort. It also brought the hope of overcoming the divisions that keep people apart and of creating...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it. at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.